Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a comedy horror film, One of the Dead. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. In Cuba, a slacker called Mr. Lazy is having a nice time on his raft in the middle of the waters. He is completely satisfied with his crappy but simple life. His friend, Mr. Fatty, suddenly comes out of the water, which almost scares him to pee. Then Mr. Fatty suggests to him to migrate towards Miami for a better life. However, he seems to be uninterested in migrating to other country, since he will be forced to work there. Also, he enjoys his life as a slacker, because he sees it as a paradise. He believes that he needs just a little bit of luck to survive life. Suddenly, his fishing rod catches something big. To their surprise, it turns out to be a skinny zombie. So, Mr. Fatty instantly kills it with a harpoon. Mr. Lazy then tells him to keep it a secret, while they cutely paddle back to the shore. Along the way home, Mr. Fatty chases a gambler who owes him money, while Mr. Lazy proceeds to help a grandma to enter the apartment. The grandma then thinks that Mr. Lazy takes advantage of her old ass. He then just says that he could not resist her dying hormones. Shortly after, Mr. Lazy and Mr. Fatty come to the rooftop, where they use a telescope to watch people around. They then see Mr. Fatty's son, called Handsome, having a good time with a woman rather than studying at their home. To dissuade Handsome from the woman, Mr. Fatty comes down to ask Handsome to play with their balls instead. Later, Mr. Lazy visits his unnamed daughter, called Daughter for short, at their home. His mother-in-law seems to be displeased upon seeing his face. It turns out that Daughter doesn't want to be related to him, since he just causes problems for her. He then begs her to give him another chance. But she believes that he will never change, despite a lot of things happening in his life. She informs him that she plans to live in Miami to have a better life. After that, Mr. Lazy comes to the rooftop to have a drink. Due to the sadness, he jumps out of the rooftop, not to kill himself, but to sneak into an apartment. Apparently, he goes there to have a hormone moment with a woman. Shortly after, they hear the husband coming to the house. He then immediately sneaks out of there to avoid being caught. Back at the rooftop, Mr. Fatty sadly informs Mr. Lazy that Handsome does not want to play the ball. So when Mr. Fatty sees a hormone game happening on the other side, he plays with his own smelly balls instead. That night, Mr. Lazy, Mr. Fatty, Handsome is at the crowded hall town, where an official announces a possible epidemic in the country. Also, they are with a drag queen, Girly, and his big muscular boyfriend, King Kong. A fat zombie suddenly comes out from the hall town and starts biting people. Everything turns into chaos, while they are just peacefully watching at the side. As blood splatters towards them, King Kong instantly faints. The following day, the government news depicts the zombie attack as an isolated riot, caused by the dissidents paid by the US government. Meanwhile, Mr. Lazy comes to Grandma's house, where Grandpa appears to be zombified. Grandpa then starts attacking Mr. Lazy. Shortly after, Mr. Fatty and Handsome arrive to help him. Mr. Fatty shoots Grandpa with a harpoon, but he accidentally kills Grandma. As Grandpa is still alive trying to attack them, they repeatedly stab him. But Grandpa seems to be unaffected. This makes Mr. Lazy think that Grandpa is possessed by a demon, so he tries to exorcise Grandpa, but he accidentally smashes Grandpa's head with the cross, which finally leads to his death. At this moment, they begin to believe the government news that the zombified humans are dissidents. After that, they bring Grandma's dead body to the elevator when it suddenly moves. They then cut it in half using the elevator. As they are about to dispose of the dead bodies, a zombie comes out of the trash can. So they repeatedly smash it with the lid, until it is dead. Meanwhile, a sexy body falls out of the apartment. They then come to her apartment to check on the apartment. As they arrive there, they see a big mess, while a naked woman, Curly, is crying on the side. Mr. Fatty suddenly starts to prey upon seeing her two heavenly mountains. He asks her to live with him. Later, the government news encourages the people to join a protest against the so-called dissidents paid by the US government. The following, a massive number of people flock in the street to join the protest, while Mr. Lazy, Mr. Fatty, and Curly watch the protest on the rooftop. As they walk down Plaza Street, they see Handsome trying to do some funny business to earn money. Suddenly, the crowd is running towards them, and the zombie dissidents start to attack the crowd of protesters. At this moment, they just peacefully stand in the middle while everything is in chaos. Amidst the shitty situation, Mr. Lazy leaves to check Daughter on her home. Along the way, he witnesses the zombies keep biting people, which increases the zombie population. He walks inside the house, where he sees his zombified mother-in-law. He then tries to sneak out of the door, but a crowd of zombies awaits him outside. So he proceeds to climb out of the window, but there are more zombies there. As he tries to climb towards the rooftop, a zombie drags him down. Luckily, daughter comes to save him from danger. Some zombies try to climb up, but he immediately stabs them. Later, he brings daughter to Handsome. He tells Handsome to take care of her. A hormone spark suddenly begins between Handsome and daughter as they see each other. So Mr. Lazy tries to prevent daughter's hormone rage by claiming that Handsome has herpes. Suddenly, Mr. Lazy notices that his chair has been taken away by Mr. Fatty, so he immediately goes to find him. Meanwhile, at the sea, Mr. Fatty with Curly is paddling a small raft as they attempt to leave the country. Alongside them, a flock of people is also slowly paddling away with their boats due to the country's shitty situation. Mr. Lazy swims towards Mr. Fatty to talk to him, while Curly suddenly falls out of the raft and begins to drown. Mr. Lazy says to Mr. Fatty that he already has a plan to get rich, so he convinces Mr. Fatty to stay. After they talk, they notice that Curly is gone. Upon checking underwater, they see a crowd of zombies walking around, while Curly also appears to be zombified. They then quickly go back to their raft, while a whale shark devours Curly. Later, Mr. Lazy reveals his plan to Mr. Fatty and Handsome. Apparently, he plans to provide a zombie killing service in exchange for a certain fee. Their business tagline is, "One of the dead, we kill your loved ones." They then begin to prepare weapons for their upcoming battles against the zombies. Meanwhile, daughter gets disappointed upon knowing his selfish business idea, but Mr. Lazy is willing to prove that he has already changed by helping other people. So he gathers people around to train them to fight the zombies. He demonstrates how to use a weapon to fight back against the zombies, and he also reveals their weaknesses. Later, Mr. Lazy, Mr. Fatty, and Handsome proceed to begin their business to fight zombies. Girly and King Kong also decide to join their business to fight zombies with their chosen weapon. Girly uses a slingshot to blow the zombies' heads, while King Kong fights with a blindfold to avoid seeing blood. He fights hard like a blindfolded King Kong with his King Kong strength. Handsome uses a baseball bat to smash zombies, while Mr. Fatty uses a double machete to slice the fat out of the zombies. Also, Mr. Lazy uses his iconic paddle to beat the smelly zombies. After they kill some zombies, they see Mr. Fatty beating a normal man on the streets. The man then gets bitten by the zombie. They then continue beating the man. Suddenly, Mr. Fatty kills a skinny man using his machete. As they give him a bad look, he explains that the skinny man owes him money. Shortly after, they ride a bike to travel towards their customer. Along their way, a helicopter crashes into the town hall. Later, they talk to a landlady, who hired them to kill her zombified Spanish tenants upstairs. Girly screams upon seeing a cockroach. This then alerts the zombies, so the zombies proceed downstairs to attack them. Suddenly, the lights turn off, so they fight the zombies in the dark. In the end, they kill all the zombies, but they also accidentally kill the landlady due to darkness. After that, their zombie killing business begins to have more customers, as they receive more calls. They also start promoting their business through the mail. Later at night, they wait at a bus stop after a long tiring day of work. It turns out that despite the zombie infestation, transportation continues in the country. But the bus passing by is filled with zombies. So they just decide to walk home. Along the dark streets, the military suddenly intercepts them and orders them to remove their clothes. They then start to reveal their dirty bodies to the military. Shortly after, the military brings them inside the truck. It turns out that the military recruits people they see in the street. They recruit them to fight the zombies, since the military force weakened due to the zombie attacks. Inside the truck, they are handcuffed with other men. A man on the other side suddenly turns into a zombie and starts biting them. The soldier who tries to respond gets bitten by the zombie. Meanwhile, they grab this chance to get the key from the soldier and free themselves from the handcuff. Mr. Fatty accidentally shoots the skinny driver. As the skinny driver seems to die, the truck starts rolling along the way. The following day, they finally got home naked. It turns out that Mr. Lazy is still handcuffed with Girly, since their key appears to be missing. At their arrival on the rooftop, Mr. Lazy sees zombies hanging around. This makes him worry about daughter, thinking the zombies have already eaten her. Apparently, daughter knows how to fight the zombie. Mr. Lazy falls to amazement upon seeing daughter beat the muscles out of a muscular zombie. A few moments after, Mr. Lazy and Girly peacefully sit together on the rooftop. Suddenly, Girly turns into a zombie and starts attacking him. He then pushes Girly to the edge of the rooftop. But he cannot completely push Girly away, since Girly is still attached to him. So, daughter gets a lubricant and gives it to Handsome, who puts it in their handcuffs. The zombified Girly then finally falls to the ground. 1 month later, the government news broadcasts that they finally won over the dissidents paid by the US government. They announce that the people can now go back to their normal routine. But in reality, the country is still in chaos, while there are a lot of zombies running around the streets. Later, they see the government news broadcaster getting eaten by the zombie, making them think that the capitalists have finally taken over their government. So they finally decide to leave their country. Outside, they ride a red car, but no one knows how to drive, except Mr. Lazy. This forces him to drive, but the car appears to be too slow. Daughter then walks out of the car in frustration, so they follow her. Along the streets, they decide to find a safe shelter instead, since they cannot find a way to get out of the country. They then go to a locked-up apartment. King Kong forces to open the door with his King Kong muscles. As he finally opens it, a crowd of ugly Godzilla-like zombies awaits him, and drags him inside like a King Kong doll. Mr. Lazy tries to help him, but it is already too late, as the Godzilla zombies have already taken him away. Later at the plaza, Mr. Lazy and daughter finally reconcile with each other, as he expresses how much he cares for her. Suddenly, they see a crowd of zombies slowly walking towards them. As the zombies trap them, a truck suddenly drives towards them to help. The truck drives in circles, while it pulls a rope which immediately cuts the heads of the zombies. The truck driver turns out to be a missionary preacher, called Captain Skinny, who lets them in his truck. They then drive towards his safe shelter. There, they ask him what the weird creatures are outside, since until now they think that the zombies are dissidents against the government. Captain Skinny then reveals that the creatures outside are living dead called zombies. So they ask him what they can do to stop the zombies. As the not-so-skinny captain is about to reveal his plan, Mr. Fatty accidentally kills him for no reason, possibly because of his shitty name. Later at night, Mr. Fatty suggests to Mr. Lazy to modify the car to an amphibian, so they can effectively fight zombies. Mr. Fatty also reveals that he has been bitten by a skinny zombie. He then wishes to see the sunrise before he turns into a fat zombie. Also wants Mr. Lazy to immediately kill him when he turns into a fat zombie. They then head to the rooftop to wait for the sunrise. Mr. Fatty reveals that he loves Mr. Lazy, so his dying wish is to have a taste of Mr. Lazy's smelly sausage. Mr. Lazy is hesitant at first, but upon seeing Mr. Fatty's teary fat eye, he suddenly strips naked to let Mr. Fatty taste his skinny sausage. Mr. Fatty bursts into laughter, since it turns out that he is only joking. As the sunrise is about to come, they finally figure out that Mr. Fatty is not turning into a zombie, so they realize that the scratch in his arm does not come from a zombie bite. They then proceed to wake up Handsome and daughter, so they can help them continue their plan to create an amphibian vehicle. Upon taking the necessary components of the vehicle, they proceed on creating it. Soon after, they successfully create the vehicle. Later, Mr. Lazy and Mr. Fatty go to the shore plaza to fight the zombies. Mr. Lazy smashes them with his big paddle, while Mr. Fatty only cuts the skinny ones with his skinny machete. They then slay the zombies one by one, until they finally create a pile of dead bodies where Mr. Lazy releases a war cry. Shortly after, Mr. Fatty goes to ride the amphibian vehicle with Handsome and daughter. Meanwhile, Mr. Lazy responds to a child who is getting attacked by a zombie. As the zombie chases him, he grabs a shovel on the ground. The zombie also holds onto the shovel. They then get into a push fight. Luckily, he pushes the zombie on the tube, where the tube pierces through the zombie's filthy butt. As he finally beats the zombie, he heads back to the shore plaza with the child. At his arrival, Handsome, with Mr. Fatty and daughter, drives the car to the sea. Shortly after, Mr. Lazy follows them at the sea to bring the child towards them. As they are ready for departure, Mr. Lazy refuses to ride the amphibian car. It turns out that he finally decides to stay in the country. He thinks that he can survive the zombie infestations, since he believes in himself as a survivor. In the end, he comes back to the shore plaza, to heroically face the battle that awaits him, while the others appear to come back to join his battle against the zombies. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.